I kid you not, I just recorded this whole video and realized that I wasn't even running my audio, so let's start over. This is not a booktube account, but we will be talking about books over here sometimes. What's going on? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name is Corey. I am a lot of things. I hate doing this intro. I am a graphic designer, art director, content creator, so on and so forth. I do it all. And I am based in Atlanta/New York. If you're not new, welcome back. Have a seat, grab a snack. Today, I am just going to do a run through of every book I read in quarter 1. I believe I have read 10 books. I had a really slow start to the beginning of the year. We will be picking it up soon. We have picked it up, but I'm just gonna go through the 10 books. If you follow me elsewhere already, you already know. Y'all ask me for recommendations all the time or want to know what I'm reading, and so we're gonna talk about it here so that I can say them all at once and give my full thoughts on each book. Well, the beginning of the year, I did start off in a reading slump. This book I started at the end of last year. It took me like 2.5 weeks to read it, and that is intense. That's quite a long time for me. It's a thick book, but it don't need to take that long. It was The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. This book is set in New York City, which was the first reason why I wanted to read it. This was gifted to me, and I can tell all the reasons why it was gifted to me, but the book didn't land all the way. It is a sci-fi book set in New York, like I just said, and it basically personifies all 5 boroughs, and the 5 boroughs are meant to come together in like a superhero type of fashion to save New York City. New York City is going through like this rebirth, and they have to do certain things to save it. There's no other way for me to explain it, I promise you. I know it sounds confusing, but overall, I think that this book, what attracted me to this book and what I did like about it is that because I'm from New York, there were certain things in the personifications of each borough that just made sense, and it felt good to see it, or like to see an accurate representation. I put accurate in quotes because it's fiction and the boroughs are not people, but an accurate representation of each borough. I thought that was dope. But that being said, on that same note, if you're not from New York or New York obsessed, I don't see you really like loving this book or being super interested in it. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. But also on top of that, I'm not typically a sci-fi girl, so that also added to my like occasional boredom. Occasional is loose. Like, I was bored for quite a bit of this book, but when I finished the book, I felt like I had an okay time. Basically, it wasn't terrible. I gave this book 3 stars. I have other books by this author. I will say I think she is a good sci-fi writer. It was hard. This style of writing was different for me, so I have to get used to it. But I feel like reading a second book of hers, because I've already read one, I would be a little more used to her writing, and maybe a different plot will draw me in. So I am going to try again with this author. People call her the queen of sci-fi. I also see her and Octavia Butler. I like Octavia Butler, and I see plenty comparisons. So yeah, we're gonna try her again. Because that put me in kind of a slump, the next book I read was Ethic 3 by Ashley Antoinette. The Ethic series follows Moth to a Flame. Ethic is a character in Moth to a Flame, and this is his series following. And so this series basically follows his life and his family dynamic and his work dynamic and all those things, but it is an urban fiction. That being said, you know the urban fic formula. There's lots of trauma, loss, violence, drugs, all the above. That's basically the basis of the book. There's a lot that goes on. There's always like some kind of twist and turn and gasping moments and things like that. Oh, my battery's about to die, of course. Give me a second. Hopefully I didn't shift you around too much, because I will not be starting over. I like it. It's enjoyable. This book specifically, of the 3 that I've read so far, the series has like 6 books in it, and then another follow-up series that has a bunch of books. So I got a ways to go. But this book in particular, out of the 3 that I read, how do I feel about this? I felt like it was still good. It's the shortest one so far. I read it in one night. It was still good. And I still obviously will continue the series because I am very attached to all the characters. But the storyline that's happening in this particular book, I'm just not super interested in. It's a lot of loss and a lot of trauma, and it was a lot. I wasn't in the mood for that, but I like the series and I like the characters, so forward. The next book I read was Our Gin. I was looking for this bookmark. Wow. The premise of this book is There was a group of older people who live in like this assisted living type community in Philly or right outside of Philly, I don't remember, and they link up and drink wine and smoke weed. That's all I need to know. It hooked me right on in. So I bought the book, and I hybrid read this. I read most of it physical, then I finished the ending by audio. I didn't think the book would hook me in like it did. Just because they're of an older generation, I felt like I wouldn't be able to relate as much, but I mean, I liked it a lot. It was kind of like, it was interesting to read a storyline that could be similar, could be something that like is relevant to me today at this point in my life, except certain things are different, like the fact that they live in this community together, or like other things that older people have to worry about. Black author, black characters. It was just an interesting read. So this was cute. I gave it 4 stars. Did I say I gave Ethic 3 stars, by the way? So the next book we have, I actually read on Cantrell, Run on Red by Noelle W. Ely, I don't know how to pronounce the last name. I'm so sorry. Run on Red is a super fast-paced thriller. I believe it's on Kindle Unlimited. So if you have Kindle Unlimited, go ahead and read it for free. You're welcome. But it's a fast-paced thriller about these 2 young ladies who are driving on their way to a bonfire, a party or something like that. And they notice that this car behind them is like chasing them and being very aggressive towards them intentionally, not trying to get past, like someone's chasing them, someone's after them. And when I was reading it, it was giving me like Jeepers Creepers type of vibes. Like, I don't know if y'all remember that movie, but the way in the beginning when they first see Jeepers Creepers, whatever he is, running after them, that's what this felt like. Like it was intense. So basically the book is about them being tortured and trying to figure out why they're being tortured. And it is an action thriller. I saw it in a Facebook group. I am someone who was a part of Facebook groups about books. Yes, I am. And people kept talking about it. So it didn't live up to the hype for me, but it was super fast paced. I think I read this in 2 days and I didn't regret reading it. I'll say that. And I am a thriller fan. So maybe I'm super critical of my thrillers. But yeah, I gave it 3 stars. 3 stars for me, by the way, is just right, like just in the middle. I didn't hate it and I didn't love it. It's just like, it was a read. Next, we have Mame by Jessica George. I adored this book. I liked it so much. I got this book for my book of the month pick. I guess my February book of the month, maybe my March book of the month. I don't remember, but I love this book. It's a coming of age story, but like a late coming of age story. So if you are someone who is of a certain age, like maybe in your mid-20s, and you feel like you haven't done a lot or done enough in comparison to your friends, and I'm talking things like dating, work, like things like that, this is the perfect book for you. Our main character, Maddie, she is culturally from Ghana and lives in London, I believe. She basically is having this late blooming experience because she's like the caretaker of her family. I'm sure if you live in a certain type of household and are not an only child, you could probably relate to that. And because of that, she's so focused on taking care of things at home, she hasn't been able to do as much as she would have liked to. She hasn't really lived. And so this book is about what it looks like for her when she lives. And it's not a super happy book. It is a sad book. Like some sad things happen, but it is interesting to see, and you do feel happy for her at certain points, and it's just a dope. I like this book. Just trust me. I gave it 4 stars. You might be wondering, like, Corey, you just talked about this book like it's the best thing that happened to you, and you only gave it 4 stars. I give 5 stars. Why am I still holding this up? I give 5 stars to books that I will absolutely be reading again in the future. Not to say that I definitely won't be reading this in the future, but if I shut that book and I know, like, and I immediately want to flip through the pages again and go back and re-reference things and like revisit my notes because I annotate my books. If I want to do that, that's a 5-star book. I know I'm going to read that again someday. This, I might read again someday. It was a great book, but it could have been like 1 or 2 things that just didn't make it like engraved on my brain. Next, I read The Perfect Marriage. I also read that hybrid. I had it on my Kindle, and then I listened to half of it. The Perfect Marriage. Everyone talks about this book. It has quite a high rating, I believe, on Goodreads. I didn't hate the book. It is a mystery thriller, and I gave it 3 stars. Why I gave this book 3 stars, this book is by The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose. I gave this book 3 stars mostly because I kind of already knew what the twist was going to be. I would love to describe what I like about the book without spoiling it, but I think it's impossible. So, but I'll just say that the book does have qualities that I look for in books. So I often ask for recommendations about certain things, and this fits the bill. It just wasn't unpredictable enough for me. But anyway, the story is about a couple who is married. There is some infidelity and there is a murder. And the number one suspect is the husband, and the wife decides to take his case as his lawyer. I mean, imagine being the lawyer on your husband's case for murder of his mistress. That sounds good to me. I gave the book 3 stars, mostly because like I watch a lot of crime and law TV, so like Law and Order and all that stuff. And you know, the things, I'm basically a lawyer, so I feel like the things that were occurring in this book were not like true to an actual trial, or like the policing wasn't correct. Like some of that stuff just felt off. That's number 1. And then 2, I knew the twist already. And then 3, the writing was weird. Like I wanted to beat the husband's character up because he just said a lot of stupid stuff, and it was just like, is this intentional, or are we just like not writing him well, not developing his character well enough? I don't know. Ooh, this list is long. Next we have Luster by Raven Leilani. I'm not gonna hold you, I saw a lot of people talking about this book. I didn't like it. I gave it 2 stars. Why I gave it 2 stars? There are a few things. The story is essentially almost similar to Mame, but on the complete end. Like if those books are on the same spectrum, they're on a complete opposite ends of the spectrum, but they're both like coming of age type books. I can't compare those 2 books. I can't. Luster, it basically is of a young black woman who gets into a relationship with this married white man. She is someone who has not had much success dating, but has been very promiscuous. And so she is, she's just lost. She's like finding herself. And in the midst of finding herself, I guess she finds herself in a relationship with this married white man and then befriends his wife. I don't know, but that's the premise of the book. She just made me so angry. I had a visceral reaction to everything she did and said in this book. If she was my sister, I would disown her. She just wasn't smart. She wasn't being a smart girl. There was nothing in the book about her character that made her win for me, or that made me want to root for her. And that was my biggest problem with the book, because what she did, her being promiscuous is not an issue for me. Her being in the relationship with the married man is not in the book, is not an issue for me. It's an issue in real life, not an issue in the book. The issue is that she had 0 redeeming qualities. Like, am I supposed to like her? She's our main character. But I didn't like her. And I didn't think she was smart. And there was not one smart thing she did in the entire book. And she was just too lost for me. Never found herself, to be honest. I mean, I don't know. But anyway, 2 stars. Moving on. The next book I read was Then She Was Gone. I also listened to this. I hybrid read this actually, but I remember listening to it was much more enjoyable than reading it. Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. This book is also super popular. It has a 4.06 on Goodreads. I gave it 4 stars. It is classified as a mystery thriller. I could see that. It's not super thrilling to me, but it had the mystery aspect, and the whole time you just keep going because you need to know what happened. You need to understand what is going on in this book. And that I enjoyed about it. I could not put it down or pause it or whatever. I needed to know what, if you saw, I was texting my friends the whole time, like, nah, I need to understand what happened in this book. I was predicting, they weren't even reading the book. I was texting them predicting what happened in the book, and they don't even know what the hell's going on. Oh, what is the book about? The book is about a woman and her family. She has 3 kids, her husband, I believe. Her daughter goes missing, and she kind of becomes like obsessive about finding her daughter, because for years they didn't find her or her body or anything like that. So she becomes obsessive about it, and then ends up kind of ruining her relationship with her family. She has a divorce. Her other children aren't as close. Like, she's kind of going crazy. Her husband finds a new partner, and she then meets this man who she likes, but he has a daughter who looks just like her missing daughter. And then the story unfolds. I say, if you like mystery type books, if you like whodunits, I would pick that book up. I recommend that book. Number 9 on the list, the next book I read the physical copy, and that was Nightcrawling. I hybrid read this between the physical and Kentrell. I did not listen to this. The book was just too cute to be walking around with this. So I had to borrow the ebook from the library and put it on my Kindle so that I could run around with it. Young lady named Kiara, who is in an unfortunate situation financially. She lives with her brother and other like family members in the building that she lives in. They are low income and they're like trying to make ends meet. They're nickel and diamond, basically trying to survive. And so she then gets into sex work as a means for survival. And as she gets mixed up in that world, she then becomes like a main character witness basically for this large high profile case. This book has a lot of different like issues and dynamics and things like that. I was impressed by this book because the author, I believe, was only 19 or something. The author was super young when they wrote this book, so that was impressive. I can only assume the author is a poet. I haven't really looked into the author yet, but it read super poetic. There were certain parts of it where I was like, oh my God, that is so, like, I wonder if I have tabs in here, but I don't know what I tabbed specifically. I don't know, but I gave this book 3 stars. Why I gave it 3 stars, I did enjoy the book, and I would say, like, if I'm giving, like, specifics, I would say a 3.5. Like, it's not just okay, like I did enjoy this book, but certain things for me didn't hit. Like I felt like a couple of the characters, they were developed, but not enough to the point where I cared about them. But all the characters were consistent throughout the book. So every time someone would pop up, I'm like, why do I care about them again? It was like that. Certain parts of it, it ebbed and flowed. Like I had some highs, I had some lows throughout the book. So I just gave it a 3.5. But it was a good book and I would recommend a read. I also went into this book blind. I love this cover. If you're familiar with my work, you know I love this cover. That's really why I picked this book up. And that obviously also contributed to my surprise when reading this book. It was super sad. Like the whole first half of the book, it was just a downer, really. But like, in a good way. I don't know. At first, I was kind of like disappointed that I'm reading such a like low, mellow book. Not even mellow, sad book, but it did get interesting. I also felt like the storyline of the case started way far into the book, and then it was like, it almost felt rushed, I guess. I would recommend the book just in general. If you don't like reading like super sad stuff, I mean like this, the content warnings for this, you definitely, any book I'm talking about here, check them content warnings. You should be doing that regardless, unless you don't mind a lot of things and you don't want any spoilers, because content warnings do spoil things for me. So I don't read them. But this one would need some. It deals with sex work, so I'm sure you can imagine what types of warnings you would need for that. The very last book I read in March, I read in one day. I started it on March 31st and finished on March 31st, and I read it on Canva, got it from the library, and that was Monday's Not Coming. Monday's Not Coming is the very first Tiffany D. Jackson book that I read. I read Grown immediately after because I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was so well done. It is a YA contemporary mystery about a young lady, I forget the main character's name, Claudia. Young lady named Claudia whose best friend's name is Monday, and she usually communicates with Monday back and forth over the summer while they're not at school, and she hadn't heard from her, and then Monday never showed up to school. And no one knows, it's like no one cares about her missing friend, and so she's going hard trying to figure out, where is my friend? This book deals with a plethora of issues. It deals, and I'm not going to list all of them because it'll be a little spoilery, but definitely suggest checking the content warnings for this one. As a Black woman, as any person in general, you are aware that when young Black women go missing, when young Black women and children go missing, there's very little care and sense of urgency in those cases, and this makes a lot of commentary on that. I thought it was very well done. I thought it's a triggering book. It's almost hard to read at some parts, but I think it's an important book, especially as a YA. I think Tiffany did her thing. I gave Monday's Not Coming 5 stars. So I did have a 5-star read in Q1. Thank you, Jesus. But yeah, Tiffany D. Jackson. I read Grown right after. Like I said, I'll do another wrap up for the books I read in Q2. I might do a monthly wrap up. I don't know. But I read Grown right after. We'll discuss my rating and all that in the next video. I picked up White Smoke from the library, so I'll be reading this next as soon as I'm done with this book that I'm currently reading. And yeah, Tiffany D. Jackson has become an author that I enjoy, so I'm excited for that. That's everything I read in Q1. If you have read any of these and have any thoughts, of course, leave a comment. If you have any recommendations for me based on what I read in Q1 and what I rated everything, let me know. Subscribe if you haven't. And me and Kentrell, we gotta go read. So I will see you in the next video. Bye.